as Graham Gano's kick is fielded by Kenny Moore, and Moore gets racked at the 19-yard line. What a shot by the linebacker Chris Wilson. And that sets the tone for the evening, and we'll take a look at the Colts offense.
Peyton Manning, University of Tennessee.
Joseph Adai, Louisiana State.
Reggie Wayne, the U. Pierre Garçon, Mountain U.
Dallas Clark, University of Iowa.
Brody Eldridge, Oklahoma.
Charlie Johnson, Oklahoma State.
Kyle DeVan, Oregon State University.
Jeff Saturday, North Carolina at Chapel Hill.
Mike Pollock, Arizona State. Ryan Deem, Northern Illinois.
DeVan moving into the starting lineup in place of Jamie Richard. And there is Joseph Adai picking up a couple out to the 23-yard line. What'd you think of that decision by Mike Shanahan, Chris?
Well, you know, the hard part is that when the Colts get the lead, they hold the lead. In their 3 wins, they haven't trailed. In their 3 losses, they haven't led. So typically how they start the game is where they finish, and by giving them first shot, it'll be interesting.
2nd and 6. And Manning floats one into the arms of Brody Eldridge, the other tight end. The number 1 tight end is Dallas Clark. Eldridge is a rookie out of Oklahoma. That's a gain of about 3, and it's going to set up a 3rd and a long one as you look at Manning on a pace to set an NFL record for most passes in a season. Third down and a long yard at the 28-yard line. Colts love to go 3 by 1 a lot, as they do right here. Adai will flank Manning in the backfield.
3rd and 1 and a dime defense.
And with the play clock ticking down to 0, a lot of action up front.
Ball start. Number 66. Offense. 5-yard penalty. 3rd down.
Referee is John Parry, and that flag is on Kyle DeVan. We just mentioned a moment ago he has been moved back into the starting lineup.
Oh, Kyle DeVan is going to reach over and tap Jeff Saturday, which basically means Peyton's ready for the ball. But then he jumps. I guess he wasn't ready for the ball. But that was a big penalty. 3rd down and 6 now instead of 3rd and 1.
That's Landry moving up to the line. Will he blitz? Yes, he will. And Adai picks him up, giving Manning time to float one down. Picked off at the 45-yard line, and then it winds up back in the hands of the Colts and is ruled incomplete. Initially, Carlos Rogers came up with the football, looked like he would have the interception, dropped it, and it will be 4th down.
Well, if Carlos Rogers could catch the football, he'd be in the Pro Bowl every year. One of the top corners the guy cannot catch. Watch this, perfect coverage, catches it, goes to the ground. As we all know by now, you got to complete the process of the catch when you go to the ground. Here it drops out, incomplete pass.
Well, does he have possession is the question, because if he does, and John Parry now is going to go over to the Indianapolis bench, because Jim Caldwell has looked at that replay, and the question is, if Rodgers had possession of it and he lost it and it's then recovered by Indianapolis, it would be the Colts ball, and that's what he's going over right now with John Parry, because it was Austin Collie, number 17 of the Colts, who came away with the ball at the end.
The only question is, did he go to the ground after he made the catch? In other words, because he really wasn't touched, did he go to the ground just sort of?
Indianapolis has challenged the previous play, claiming it was a catch and a fumble rather than an incomplete pass. We'll review the play.
There was a certain moment of time there, but I don't know if it's long enough.
Parry under the hood. Yeah, I thought he had possession.
And then the other thing was he contacted. It looked like Collie might have flipped his elbow there. See?
Yeah, 1, but he's got possession. 2.
Yeah, but even then,
3.
he would be down there because he was contacted to the ground. What?
No.
No, I'm saying if he hit his elbow right here, right there hit his elbow and he goes to the ground, he would be down there. So it would still be Redskins ball.
Right. That is an interesting point.
What? Right? Either that is an interception and down,
right,
or an interception and the ball's knocked free when it went, or an incomplete. See, I think he flips his arm right there. And he probably kicked him, too. Did you see his leg kick up? Right there. Yeah, he kicks him. So either way, he's down.
But he loses. But I think it's going to be incomplete in the ultimate here, because they're going to say that he didn't have possession of it all the way through the ground. I think that's how it comes out. Right, to go through all three options here. Right. What's that thing saying incomplete?
After reviewing the play has been confirmed. Incomplete pass. The defender is going to the ground and did not maintain possession of the ball. 4th down. Indianapolis is charged with their first team timeout.
Big break for Washington, because he's controlling it, but he doesn't have control all the way to the ground. In effect, you go back to the opening day game and Calvin Johnson losing the ball for Detroit against Chicago. Same thing, even though that's an offensive play, here's a defensive play. And so you have an incomplete pass and you have a punt by McAfee. And this is Brandon Banks, a little guy who's made a big splash at 5'6" 3/4 and about 148 pounds, now running back kicks for the Washington Redskins. And he takes the ball out to about the 43-yard line as we take a look at the Washington starters.
Donovan McNabb, Syracuse University.
Ryan Terrain, Arizona State.
Mike Sellers, North Thurston High School.
Santana Moss,
U.
Anthony Armstrong,
B. West Texas A&M.
Chris Cooley, Utah State.
Trent Williams, Longview High.
Corey Lichtensteiger, Bowling Green.
Casey Rabach, Wisconsin.
Artis Hicks, Memphis.
Jamal Brown, University of Oklahoma.
For years, they were solid and steady up front, and now in the process of revamping that interior 5. And McNabb will have that one deflected and incomplete. And that is Sellers looking around, looking for a flag, but he's not going to get one because the pass was deflected. 2nd down and 10. So if nothing else, the Washington Redskins get away with deferring after winning the coin toss. McNabb throwing deep often this year. 5 completions of 50 or more yards, tops in the league in that category, so he can still air it out. 2nd down and 10 from the 41-yard line. And then they give the ball to Ryan Terrain, and he will not be able to get around the corner. Forced out by Kelvin Hayden. And let's take a look at the Colts defense.
Robert Mathis, Eastside, McNair High School.
Daniel Muir, Kent State.
Phoebe Moala, Southern Cal.
Dwight Freeney, Syracuse.
Philip Wheeler, Georgia Tech.
Pat Anger, Iowa.
Clint Session, Pittsburgh.
Kelvin Hayden, Illinois.
Antoine Bethea, the real HU, DeMecca, Howard University.
Aaron Francisco, BYU.
Gerard Powers, Auburn.
A lot of eyes tonight on Angerer, the rookie, who spells the injured bracket. And then the pass over the middle is caught by Santana Moss. That's a 1st down, and the Redskins will have the ball in Colts territory.
Well, that was a big 3rd down and 10, and the big issue all night is going to be, can they block Freeney and Mathis on the outside? And look at that protection there. I tell you, go back to the game a week ago against the Packers, and there were major issues up front for this Redskins offensive line. But for the fact they had a guy like Donovan McNabb playing quarterback, probably would have taken about 10 sacks in that game.
Now Terrain, Ryan Terrain to the 46. So what is Ryan Terrain doing in the Washington backfield if you haven't been following this team that closely? Clinton Portis is their main guy, but he has a groin injury. There he is. He's in civvies, hopes to be back maybe in a couple of weeks. In training camp, they brought in Larry Johnson and Willie Parker. Parker, formerly of the Steelers, had that long run in the Super Bowl in '06. So you had 2 one-time stars plus Portis. Those 2 guys are gone, and they go back to Ryan Terrain, who was drafted by Shanahan out of Arizona State. in Denver in 2008. Second down and 8. So he knows the system, and Terrain this time is able to exploit that system for a nice gain inside the 40 to make it a 3rd down and 1.
Already we're seeing something here. Mike Sellers, the fullback, is more worried about the backside defensive ends and the speed that they have with Mathis and Freeney. They're not worried so much about the front side and what's happening over there. They think physically they can overpower them there, but they have no answer for that backside speed, so they're sending their fullback Sellers backside to get them.
And that Sellers in the backfield providing some leverage, and McNabb will keep it himself on a 3rd down and 1 and appears to convert it. Let's see where they're going to spot the football. Very close to a 1st down, and so signaled a 1st down and a 2nd consecutive 3rd down conversion.
And this is the one thing that the Colts always worry about. You talk to Larry Corey, their defensive coordinator, they say, listen, we know what they're going to do. They're going to come out and try and bloody our nose and just run over us.
And now you've got Gerard Powers coming up with the football, and he will be taken out of bounds at the 43-yard line. So the Redskins, after the conversion, run a quick play, and equal to the task is Powers to give Indianapolis the ball back.
Boy, that was some play by Gerard Powers. He's just going to jump this route. Really wasn't reading the quarterback or anything. As soon as he saw Santana Moss come to the inside, he just beat him to the spot. And for Donovan, really, you're throwing that ball not so much on what you see, but just the feel. You have to give Powers credit. It was just a better play by him.
And now Manning goes to work again, this time at his own 43-yard line. Colts' 2nd possession. And Peyton's going to air it out. He's going to go deep, and it's going to be caught. And inside the 10 and going to the end zone is Pierre Garçon for a touchdown. 57 yards. And so Manning, who's done it so many times over the years, gets a turnover and exploits it on the very next play to give the Colts the early lead.
You know, sometimes you get caught in disguising the coverage, and all of a sudden you can't catch up to the speed of Pierre Garçon. On the inside, LaRon Landry, the safety, was trying to disguise his coverage. He was down in the box, and Peyton Manning basically said, I know you're fast, but you're not that fast. You can't catch Garçon from there. Read it immediately and went over the top.
Adam Vinatieri, who hasn't missed a place kick this season, maintains his perfect mark here with 9:47 to go in the opening quarter. 7-0, Indianapolis. Pat McAfee ready to kick off for the Colts. We talked about Brandon Banks listed at 5'7", and Mike Shanahan telling us it's about 5'6" and 3/4 and 148 soaking wet.
He is a little guy. Did you see him on the field? He looked like Andrea running around out there.
He's provided a big spark for them since being activated. He takes this one at the 2-yard line, tries a little hurdle move there, and there's a flag down. For the moment, the run back comes out to the 24-yard line. Clearly against the Redskins as the Colts applaud.
During the return, holding number 54 of the return team. 10-yard penalty, 1st and 10.
That is H.B. Blades. Back to the touchdown we go.
Well, they're trying to fool with the professor here. LaRon Landry's going to sort of creep down here, and LaRon Landry's going to go this way and then make it look over here. Kareem Moore's going to look like he goes that way, and all of a sudden now he's not fooled at all. And now you've got Landry in a position down tight inside, and he can't get there. The pump fake to the outside is really what held D'Angelo Hall as well on that one.
Now McNabb begins from the 14-yard line. Terrain. And he gets taken down by the foot. Dwight Freeney right there. Number 93 to stop him. Gain of 1. 2nd down and 9.
Well, if you're going to try and double team Dwight Freeney, you better do a better job on it And this right here, he is just going to plow his way right through and end up making the tackle on Ryan Terrain. That guy has really been something in this league for a long, long time. You know, we all know him as the pass rusher extraordinaire, but what they've been doing from the end position, Robert Mathis too, and stopping the run this year is what set them up late in the game to go get the quarterback.
Freeney, a freshman at Syracuse when McNabb was a senior, and Donovan will go down at the 7-yard line, and that is Pat Angerer with Brackett out. Angerer, who was picked in the 2nd round by Bill Polian and the Colts out of the University of Iowa, gets the start tonight. And as you look at Gary Brackett, he has to appreciate that one.
Yeah, and you're going to see double blitz coming right here. And I really think this is a read blitz on the back. He's really in coverage, but when Terrain steps up and blocks, that frees Angerer to go in and make the sack. Not a great start for the Redskins here.
No, 8-yard sack, 3rd down and 17. McNabb will hand the ball on a draw to the rookie Keeland Williams, so they just try to buy a little bit of breathing space and get none, and that's Eric Foster making the tackle. And the Washington Redskins will send a familiar man back to punt. That would be one Hunter Smith, who for years, for a decade, was the punter in Indianapolis, and that was one of the cushiest jobs in America, because when you're the punter on a Peyton Manning team, very often you don't have to shower after a game. Kenny Moore will drop back. Good kick, fielded at the 39-yard line. And Moore will be taken down as he crosses the 50-yard line by Mike Sellers after a 56-yard boot. 7:41 to go in the quarter. 7-0 Colts. Colts. They have it at the Redskin 48-yard line to begin this drive. And here's a dive. And a guy shaken up last week had to come out of the game when he got bounced on his head. Picks up 3, but he's fine tonight. Jim Haslett is the defensive coordinator. For 6 years he was the head coach of the New Orleans Saints. A lot of experience as a defensive coordinator at Pittsburgh before he was in New Orleans, then with the Rams, was the Rams interim coach a couple of years ago. And Mike Shanahan targeted him and said, hey, you know what I want to do? Let's run the 3-4. Let's look like Pittsburgh. And that's what he's trying to implement this season.
A lot of people like to look like Pittsburgh.
2nd down and 7. And that is deflected and incomplete. And again, it's Rodgers who got a hand on it on the pass intended for Dallas Clark. It'll be 3rd and 7.
Well, any defense is going to know exactly where Dallas Clark is. And when you have one of your top cover corners covering a tight end, it lets you know just how good the Redskins think that he is. And that's ball number 2 now that Rodgers has had his hands on, and at least an opportunity for an interception, and they've missed both. Really, the key to the game thus far has been the interception by the Colts.
By Powers. 3rd and 7. And Manning flings it to the outside, and that is incomplete. Tried to get it out into the flat to Joseph Adai, so a 3 and out. Brian Arakpo, the outside linebacker, put the heat on Manning.
Call this the amoeba defense. No shape, no form, nobody with their hand on the ground. They're going to walk around, end up bringing pressure from the outside. It feels like pressure to a quarterback, but it's really just a 4-man rush. That time Peyton hurried his throw and had to punt it.
Pat McAfee punting. Brandon Banks sets up at the 10-yard line. Bearcats called for, and Banks hauls it in at the 11. McNabb goes to work from that spot. 6:44 to the quarter. 7-0 Colts. Chris, they talk about guys who play angles, who know how to play the angles. These are 2 of them.
They certainly do. I tell you, we tried to check them out, and it's pretty amazing when you look at this on tape. Look at it, gets his body at a 45-degree angle, and David Deal really has no chance to slow him down. So then we took a look at Robert Mathis, and he's even better down at a 40-degree angle, almost going sideways. And We looked for comparison, and there's his knee. You can see just how amazing the torque on that. For comparison purposes, we could only find Paulo Ono coming around the corner at a 35-degree angle. But it's so hard on these offensive tackles who are 6'6", 6'7", and these guys are coming speeding around the corner only about 4 feet off the ground.
But for Freeney and Mathis in short track in Sochi, Russia in 2014. Here's Ryan Terrain, stopped as he crosses the line of scrimmage. Robert Mathis in on the stop. We're talking about those two guys, the bookends. They are the masters of the sack fumble. 32 times in his career, Mathis has created a sack fumble. For Freeney, 28 times.
Yeah, it's amazing to me. The entire game has been focused, the blocking scheme, on blocking those guys on the back sides of runs. And we talk about them as pass rushers, but they're afraid of them running tonight.
And McNabb has a nice back pocket that time, and Chris Cooley makes the catch over the middle. He's tackled there by Clint Session, and that is the 24th catch of the season for the Redskin tight end.
Trent Williams, the top draft pick of the Redskins, playing left tackle, is doing a nice job on Freeney. And on the other side, Robert Mathis making his inside move, but that was a clean pocket for Donovan McNabb. A lot of questions about Trent Williams, a lot of injuries coming into this game, but he's looked pretty good so far.
Cooley, a lot like Dallas Clark, a tight end, but not a conventional tight end. Both quarterbacks love to throw to those guys, and this is a nice run around the right side by Ryan Terrain, who gets taken down after a gain of 7 by the linebacker Pat Angerer.
Well, Chris Cooley's not really known for being a blocker, but he has been on the edge, and anytime you see a run bounce to the outside, because somebody's making a block on the edge, and there's Chris Cooley just getting in position. Philip Wheeler coming off of probably the best game I've seen him play on tape in a long, long time. We'll see how he does tonight.
2nd down and 3. And now you have the play fake, and now you've got McNabb going deep, and McNabb incomplete, trying to get it to Brandon Banks. So they sent the little speedster over the middle. He had a little bit of separation, but the pass couldn't get to him, and it will be 3rd down and 3.
Well, this ended up being nothing but a foot race. You see Gerard Powers intercepting a ball underneath, said we're going to send our fastest guy right by you. But really a pretty good call, because the Colts love to come up, love to take chances. 2nd down and 3, take your shot at a big play. Mike Shanahan's not afraid to throw one over the top. They do it a lot, more than any team in the league.
3rd down and 3, the ball at the 30-yard line. Pressure on McNabb, but he gets it away, and the pass is caught for a 1st down by Anthony Armstrong up at the 37-yard line. And with guys like Armstrong and Banks and a few others, the Washington Redskins, they've got a lot of veteran players, a lot of holdovers, but a lot of guys who've earned their stripes through special teams and doing a lot of the grunt work.
But look at the cushion there, because anytime you throw one deep, plants that seed in the defensive back's mind, even though it wasn't Kelvin Hayden. Hey, they're going to take some shots down the field. Let me give them another step. Throw it underneath for the 1st down.
At the 37-yard line, that pass is caught by Armstrong. What a story this kid is. He played in something called the Intense Football League. Now, it's one thing to not ever hear of a team, but what about a league? Very few people around the NFL knew what that was. He played in Texas. They played in an indoor arena. It was a hockey rink. They had a practice outside in a parking lot. And how much did he make? $200 a game. Last week he caught a huge touchdown pass against Green Bay. 1st and 10. The ball is at the 48-yard line. Terrain. Can he get out of the backfield? Yes, he can. Into Colt territory. A 1st down and a few yards more. Worked his way around Fili Moala, who almost had him for a loss.
You know, Ryan Terrain's not a speedster by any means whatsoever, but his patience is paying off, because he's allowing time for his tight end Chris Cooley, and he's allowing time for his fullback Mike Sellers to get on their blocks. And it's the one thing you wouldn't expect out of Ryan Terrain. He's a power guy, about a 4.7 runner, not a lot of speed, and yet so far he's been beating the Colts to the edge.
Gain of 16 on the play. Play fake. That buys a ton of time. And the pass caught by Moss, who goes down after picking up a first down at the 18-yard line. That's good for 18 yards.
Well, you start running the ball effectively a little bit. You've got a new player in at middle linebacker right there, Pat Angerer. Watch how he bites up on the play fake. Really no choice whatsoever. Everybody up. Big hole in behind it. Easy completion. Good-looking drive by the Redskins.
At the 18-yard line now on first down. McNabb setting up the screen. Terrain breaks the tackle. And with tough running to the 9-yard line. Broke away from Antonio Johnson, who had him just past the line of scrimmage. And he sets up a second down and 1 for Washington.
Nice job here by the rookie offensive lineman, Trent Williams. Watch how he sets up this screen pass. Of course, here's on the other side, Robert Mathis working on that side. But on the left side, Trent Williams took a big outside set and basically invited his guy to rush on the inside, Keontae Dawson, and that's what set up the screen.
2nd and 1. They've moved from their 11 to the 9 of Indianapolis. And Terrain goes around the corner and all the way into the end zone for a Washington touchdown.
Well, they got a great seal on the outside. Chris Cooley gets his guy in. Anthony Armstrong comes down on the crackback block, and there's nobody there. The only guy left, Kelvin Hayden, and there's no way he's tackling Ryan Terrain. Good crackback block by Anthony Armstrong. That young man has done a lot of things. After you play in the intense league, you play intense league.
Graham Gano for the point after. And that ties the game after a 10-play, 89-yard drive, 9-yard TD run by Terrain, and we're locked at 7. FedEx Field, Landover, Maryland, just outside the boundary of our nation's capital. Peyton Manning awaiting his next shot with 1 minute and 22 seconds left in the opening quarter. Graham Gano will send it down in the direction of Kenny Moore. Moore at the goal line. And that Redskin coverage unit has done a great job tonight. This time it's Reed Dowdy stopping him at the 15. That Colt defense, and that has been an Achilles heel for them. As you can see, 4.8 yards per rush allowed, and that's 3rd worst in the league, and they're 4th worst in terms of rushing yards per game, and they were shredded by Arian Foster of the Houston Texans in that opening day blowout in Texas.
And that's Gary Brackett, the starting middle linebacker, who's out with a groin injury tonight.
16-yard line. Manning, Collie to the 23. Let's meet the Redskin defense.
Adam Parker, Nebraska.
Maake Kemoyatu, Utah.
Kedrick Golston, Georgia.
Lorenzo Alexander, Cal.
London Fletcher, John Carroll University.
Horatio Blades, Pitt.
Brian Arakpo, Texas.
D'Angelo Hall, Virginia Tech.
Kareem Moore, Oklahoma High School.
Ryan Lane, LSU.
Carlos Rogers.
And that is another pass that could have been intercepted. Kareem Moore, the safety, had it in his hand. So Rogers has dropped a sure one and another one that was close, and then Moore plants one on the grass.
Well, Carlos Rogers doing a great job in coverage on Austin Collie right here. And that time, because he threw one in Rogers' hands the last time, he put a little more air underneath this one and threw it right to Kareem Moore, who dropped it. That is the 3rd opportunity now the Redskins have had for an interception.
3rd down and 3. 4-man rush. Manning to the outside, and that is Wayne very casually feed in, and the great Reggie Wayne right there knew exactly where he was, had the first down by plenty, kept his feet down, steps out of bounds, a silent first down. at the 33. A dive. Some tough running over left tackle. Gain of 8 to the 41-yard line. Moore and Alexander in on the stop, and we're down to under a half minute left in the quarter.
Watch how quickly Peyton Manning calls the plays. He wants his full play called before the crescendo of the crowd starts, and let the defense worry about making their calls.
Now Collie makes the grab, and Austin Collie will pick up a first down as he gets tackled up at the 46-yard line, and that's going to take us to the end of the first quarter. End of one. FedEx Field, Landover, Maryland. The score is Indianapolis 7, Washington 7. And Sunday Night Football continues after these messages.
Love this town. I could spend months here just going museum to museum, and so much to see. Great place.
And the end of a pretty spectacular weather weekend as the second quarter begins with a 1st and 10 for the Indianapolis Colts at their own 46-yard line. And Manning slinging it to the outside, and forward progress for Garcon will get him a first down before he is pushed back by D'Angelo Hall.
Well, we talked about it just briefly, but Peyton Manning, as soon as the prior play is finished, he wants to quickly make his call. You can hear the sort of lull in the crowd for about 10 seconds, and then as he gets the line of scrimmage, they get back into it. But his feeling is that that impacts the defense in a negative manner more than it does him. So you'll see how quickly he's going to make this call. He's done. The crowd's not into it. Now he's at the line of scrimmage. Now the crowd gets into it, and the defense can't communicate.
And that amoeba defense moving around, but at least this time they have one guy with a hand down. Now nobody with a hand down. And Manning keeps them jumping on a 2nd and 7 after a 3-yard gain by a dive, and that's caught by Wayne. And Wayne gets spun out of bounds by Phillip Buchanan. That will be another first down.
Yeah, they're doing everything they can to try and disguise as people walking around, and then you're going to get a safety blitz. Kareem Moore out of the secondary, but Joseph Adai, they were so excited that he was able to play. There was some question because of the neck injury a week ago, but his ability to block and read those defenses as well, very much a key.
Quick count, and Adai will take the ball for a gain of about 4. You look at Adai and you look at some of his numbers, and they really won't impress you that much. He normally averages in the 3s in yards per carry, but he catches so many passes. He makes the tough runs. Great blocker, tremendous value. 2nd and 6. And that's caught on the outside, and that is Pierre Garcon at the 10-yard line, taken out there by LaRon Landry.
I tell you what, Al, the other thing this is doing is it's keeping the Redskins out of some of those exotic blitz looks. You know, Peyton's going so fast here that they barely have time to make their calls. So they're playing some base looks now.
1st and goal, the ball right at the 10-yard line. And Adai gets about half the distance, making it 2nd down and goal from just outside the 5.
Well, if you're used to watching the Washington Redskins, you know they have given up a lot of yards this year. They've had teams going up and down the field, but they've been pretty stout down inside the red zone here and not giving up touchdowns. Peyton says this is really where the game will be decided.
2nd down and goal from the 5 out of the shotgun. Fake to Adai, and then into the end zone to Austin Collie for a touchdown. So that 91-yard drive by the Washington Redskins gets immediately answered by an 84-yard 12-play drive by Peyton and company.
Well, Carlos Rogers this time thought he had help over the top with his safety, but Kareem Moore went out and doubled the outside guy. He turns around and then turns immediately to his left and goes, Kareem, what's up? Kareem looks outside and there's nobody there.
Vinatieri. Makings of a shootout in D.C. 12:44 to the half. 14-7 Colts. Brandon Banks is going to run this kick back. Pat McAfee, their punter, does their kicking off. From the goal line. To the outside comes Banks. And Banks, another spark, as he's provided over the past couple of weeks, skirts the sideline, takes it out to the 44-yard line. For years we've talked about the Washington Redskins. Dan Snyder has owned the team since '99. The question is, he inherited Norv Turner, went to Marty Schottenheimer, went to Steve Spurrier, went to Joe Gibbs, went to Jim Zorn. Do you think he got it right this time between Shanahan and Bruce Allen, the general manager?
No question about it. And the players talk about it too, Al. They say the minute that Mike Shanahan walked in, stood in front of the team, they knew they had to respect the guy. He has Super Bowl rings. He commands your respect, and it's just a different feeling here this year.
And here is Terrain. And Terrain breaking tackles to the 44. And when you talk about Shanahan and what he did in Denver, it didn't matter who he plugged in at running back. Of course, he had Terrell Davis, but he had a bunch of other guys who gained 1,000 yards, and Terrain would fit that mold.
It's the first time they didn't come backside to get Mathis, and he just missed the tackle. Robert Mathis, one of the great hustlers in the game, never takes a play off, but that was a free shot, and the Colts are finding out Ryan Terrain's not easy to get on the ground. He's having a huge night.
9 carries, 54 yards, and a touchdown. He's averaging 6 yards a tote. And McNabb buys a ton of time, but then the pass is short at the 29-yard line. Antoine Bethea comes away with it, but it was short hop hitting the ground.
Well, the one thing that they've been working on with Donovan McNabb a lot, Mike Shanahan, Kyle Shanahan, is his footwork. The one thing they don't like that he does is put his feet together when he's getting ready to throw the ball. You're going to see at the very top of this drop, his feet were together. He was standing tall. Then he takes that big, long stride. They want him to spread out a little bit. They feel like that when he gets a good base underneath him, he doesn't miss throws like that.
Here's Terrain, but how easy is it for a guy in his 12th season? He's had the same fundamentals basically for all of those years. So Syracuse, 11 years under Andy Reid in Philadelphia. Is it doable? Can you change your fundamentals to that extent?
Well, I've seen him a few times get back there, and you can almost see him hear voices. You know, he's standing tall, then he kind of spreads his legs out a little bit and gets that base underneath him. But he said, you know, I've done a few good things over the past 11 years, so, you know, I think he wants a little respect back the other way, but they are trying to advance him.
The 33-year-old McNabb throws, and that's high, intended for Moss, and this is what you're talking about.
Well, it's not just here with the Redskins, obviously. It's with Philadelphia, and there's the feet together, and then the big giant stride, and some good, some not so good. He likes to stand tall and then take that stride. But what they want here is for him to start with his legs that far apart, and it would quicken up his release and take out a few variables in that delivery.
Hunter Smith's punt, fair catch called for and made by Kenny Moore at the 15-yard line. Under 11 minutes to go in the opening half. Colts with a 7-point lead. 18-63, know each other fairly well, you might say. Center Jeff Saturday, quarterback Peyton Manning. How long have they played together? 160 starts, most starts by a quarterback center duo, tying right now Fran Tarkenton and Mick Tingelhoff. Tarkenton was there, remember, in 2 segments, 62 through 66, went to the Giants, came back. Mick was still there, so they played 160 together, and that mark gets equaled here tonight.
Between those two quarterbacks, they could read some defenses, couldn't they? Peyton and Fran had a way of just sort of picking you apart. And Jeff Saturday, Peyton Manning said, you can get rid of anybody else you want, but do not get rid of him. I have to chip in on my contract, I'll do it.
Saturday came into the league a year after Peyton. And the handoff this time goes to Mike Hart. He would be their number 3 running back, and number 2 back Donald Brown, hurt tonight, inactive. Adai, of course, is number 1, and Hart played a big role last week. He scored the only touchdown in the game against Kansas City and cemented it with about 4 minutes to go.
But not nearly as polished in the passing game as Adai.
2nd down and 6, and Manning, before he gets hit, throws, and that is caught. And once again, Austin Collie, who's been limited in practice time with a foot ailment over the past couple of weeks, but playing a big role here tonight. 4 catches for him.
And here's Jeff Saturday. We were just talking about him. Arakpo came around. He's seen it all, and boy, Peyton says he really relies on him to help him with play calling.
Now Hart, 7-yard gain for the University of Michigan alumnus, who was drafted in the 6th round in 08. Second and 3.
Excuse me, kind of amazing when you think about it that Peyton Manning has only played in 3 offenses in his life. 1 in high school, 1 in college, and 1 in the pros. He's pretty good at all of them.
A lot of guys are jealous. Second down and 3. And that catch is made by Wayne. And Wayne gets in between the 2 backs, Buchanan and Landry, for another first down and an 18-yard gain.
And basically double coverage on the outside on Reggie Wayne, and they still get it in there. Buchanan has them all the way, just the underneath coverage with help deep, and they still completed it.
From the 40. Hart. So a good mixture of pass and run on this drive, and that's a gain of 6, and that's Clyde Christensen, who's the offensive coordinator. Clyde's been on the staff for a number of years. Tom Moore had that role. Tom is now kind of in the emeritus role, and Clyde is the play caller.
This Redskins defense has to be getting worn out at this pace. This has been breakneck.
Second and 4, and Manning. Play fake, pump fake, and then incomplete. Almost too easy for Pierre Garçon, who drops it. 3rd and 4.
Boy, Peyton with that pump fake just throws Kareem Moore on the deep outside. This is going to be an easy completion. And watching tape, if there's one guy that sort of gets more of the chewing outs than anybody, typically it's Pierre Garçon. He'll drop a few and a few missed assignments along the way.
3rd and 4. Adai is back in. And that pass is caught. They needed 4. They get 4.5. Maybe they get 5, let's say. Dallas Clark makes the catch inside the 30-yard line.
We would love to show you a few replays. We don't have time. Peyton Manning, I've seen him go fast-paced before, but I think this is the fastest I've ever seen.
Inside handoff. Adai. They've already picked up over 200 yards. Washington, the lowest ranked defense in the league. What does that mean coming into the game? That means they've given up the most yardage. So they were last in yardage allowed. But as Chris talked about before, good in the red zone. They've allowed the 9th fewest points, which is a better indication of what your defense really is. 2nd down and 8. Manning. And that pass is a little short. Manning at time, and again, that's Garçon going to the ground at the 2-yard line. Moore covering in 3rd down and 8.
Now you're finally going to get a little pressure on Peyton this time. Lorenzo Alexander, who's been their special team star here, gave him a little Dwight Freeney impersonation with that spin move, and finally got Peyton to at least look down.
3rd down and 8. Manning throws. That'll be caught, but short of the first down. Clark had to come back to the ball, and then the coverage is good. Dowdy makes sure he doesn't pick up the first down, and that's going to set up a 4th down and 2 halfway through the quarter.
And I'm sure Jim Haslett's going, phew. It's like, what was that? A blitzkrieg coming at us over there. I've never seen him at that pace before, and thank goodness Reed Dowdy able to tackle Dallas Clark. You can see Haslett, who loves to blitz and loves to attack, but he's like, oh my goodness, what was that?
This will be a 38-yard attempt for Adam Vinatieri. After a couple of injury-plagued seasons, kicking as well as ever. And of course, I put the kibosh on him immediately. His first miss of the season. Boy, did the Redskins get away with one there. 14-7. Terrain-breaking tackles.
He's not a speedster by any means whatsoever, but his patience is paying off.
This is Sunday night.
And the Colts, that fast-paced 10-play drive. The 11th was the missed field goal. And now Mike Shanahan's team Still down by only 7. Will begin this drive. Indianapolis with about a 2-1 yardage advantage at this point in the game. The ball at the 28-yard line with Terrain in the backfield. McNabb gives it to him. Around the corner he goes and hurdles his way out to the 40-yard line. Cooley with the block. 12-yard gain. Shanahan at Denver. Of course, Mike known for the zone blocking scheme, the light lineman up front, and there he was, 95 through 08, that 14-year spell. Led the NFL both in rushing yards per game and in yards per rush. 4.5. The league average is always 4 or 4.1. There's Terrain again. And Terrain, look at this. We talked to Mike about, look, we know you had Terrell Davis. Terrain's not Davis, but who else might he remind you of? And the first guy that came to mind was Mike Anderson, who had a 1,000-yard season in Denver.
Yeah, just a big, strong, powerful guy. And against the Colts, they are not a big defense. They are small and fast. And right now, the Redskins are taking it to them. And I tell you, one guy that's had a huge role in it is their wideout, Anthony Armstrong. His crackback blocks on the outside have really set the edge and allowed some of those outside runs to break.
2nd and 6. And John Parry throws the first flag in a while.
Number 75, offense, 5-yard penalty, 2nd down.
Right guard Artis Hicks.
And this is an offensive line that clearly is a work in progress. They have not spent a lot of time together. Jamal Brown, Artis Hicks, Corey Lichtensteiger, Trent Williams, of course, the rookie, Casey Robach, really about the only holdover, and of course a new quarterback to go along with it. So they are a work in progress. The one good thing about Ryan Terrain, though, is if he's told to run off tackle, by golly, he's running off tackle. Clinton Portis, he can end up anywhere, but you know exactly where Terrain's going to be.
Off tackle and over a tackle. Pressure on. Mathis chasing him from behind. And the little short on flip to Cooley is incomplete. 3rd down and 11.
Well, sometimes you think you have Robert Mathis blocked, and you just don't. He is just too quick for most tackles. You can see Brown thought that he had pretty good position on him, and he just jumped inside. And Mathis may be one of the only handful of defensive ends that could run down Donovan McNabb from behind, but he almost got there the 2nd time. A lot of bootlegs, a lot of draws, a lot of screens, trying to slow down these pass rushers.
Joey Galloway in the game. Wide to the left, oldest receiver in the league, and the pass is incomplete at the 50-yard line, and that was Dwight Freeney forcing the issue as he gets to the quarterback, and it's 4th down.
One of the things they loved about Clinton Portis was he was a block-first kind of guy. Watch Keelan Williams right here going to work on Robert Mathis. They said Clinton Portis, he would forego a route. If he saw an offensive lineman in trouble, he would just stay in and block. Didn't care, protected his quarterback, and obviously the quarterbacks appreciated it.
Caught at the 18-yard line by Kenny Moore, and he gets enveloped, and the ball is lost at the 23-yard line. Powers is sure that Indianapolis has recovered it. And a lot of action and coming away with it. Guys flying out of the scrum. And Indianapolis does recover it. So a big break for the Colts right there. With Moore putting it on the ground, but the Colts retaining possession. 5:06 to the half. Brandon King recovering the fumble for the Colts, and here was Jim Haslett gathering the troops, and London Fletcher having a few words as well for a defense that had to be gassed on that last Colt drive.
You know, and the other thing is you have to make those calls so fast, and you're not getting any help from the sideline in this hurry-up offense.
So 5:06 remaining in the opening half, 7-point game. The Indianapolis Colts, 8 straight years in the playoffs, 8 straight years, double-digit wins. Manning throwing, caught, and it's Collie picking up Close to 9.5 yards, and for Austin tonight, that's 5 catches, 43 yards. 2nd down and 1.
I guess that acupuncture worked, huh?
Yes, even though it burned his foot first time he had it. 2nd and 1. Here's a dive, and a dive slipping away and gets taken down from behind. It was Landry who was able to catch him from behind the 45-yard line after he broke out of a D'Angelo Hall tackle.
The toughest part of playing the Colts is Dallas Clark can also, instead of flanking out as a receiver, come down, play the true tight end role, makes a key block there, and they're off and running the football.
From the 45. Manning to the outside. That pass is incomplete at the 50-yard line. Reggie Wayne is covered there by Philip Buchanan.
This is just one of those really significant drives in the ball game. We talked about it before, but you can't allow the Colts to get up by too much and put yourself in those must-pass situations against Freeney and Mathis.
2nd and 10. Manning, and that is an unbelievable one-handed grab by Garcon. So Garcon, who had trouble on a couple of earlier passes that were about 1,000 times easier to catch, pulls this one in like he had a cesta and a highlight fronton.
Are you kidding me? That is unbelievable. Not only, and the thing just stuck in his hand. It was with the wrong hand. If you're going to make a one-handed catch, you're supposed to do it with the other one.
From the 34, Clark, and he gets taken down at the 30-yard line. Go back and look at that catch. Rodgers made that last tackle.
You're not supposed to catch it with your right hand and one-handed. It just stuck. Pierre Garcon's just one of those guys that he's all one way or all the other. You get huge plays, as we've seen, and you get some mistakes from time to time, but he's been big tonight.
Great catch. Rodgers hurt on the last play, injury timeout. 3:24 to the half. Colts 14, Redskins 7. Back we come to FedEx Field. Rodgers out, and Byron Westbrook, 34, comes into the defensive backfield. He is the brother of Brian Westbrook, a longtime Eagle, now with the 49er. Manning will throw, and behind and incomplete, and the guy looks around and tries to get a flag and won't get it. London Fletcher covering on the play, and right to the mic. The minute the play is over, that mic opens up and Christensen calls in the play or concept.
Yeah, and look, now they try and substitute. There you go, flag on the play. I mean, it's just a machine. And we were talking to Jim Haslett about Peyton Manning. He said, he used to come into the Saints practices and throw 7-on-7 with our guys, and he'd be the best guy in camp doing that when he was a sophomore in high school.
Now the question is, if the Redskins had too many guys on the field, but was the ball signaled ready for play? Again, with the umpire now lining up in the offensive backfield, he has to get behind the deepest offensive player.
Indianapolis did not substitute. Illegal substitution. Defense. 12 men on the field at the snap. 5-yard penalty. 3rd down.
3rd down and 6. And the Redskins practiced this all week. Speed substitutions. And you could see one of the defenders, I think it was Arakpo, trying to call timeout.
And he couldn't.
Lou Spanos on the sideline.
Formerly on the Lou Spanos, the linebackers coach, had been with Pittsburgh. But these guys are up against, as you say, a machine tonight. And the Colts have been doing it for years.
So from 3rd and 6 to 3rd and 1 now.
3rd down 1. The ball is at the 25-yard line. And a big stop as a die gets caught in the backfield. And that is Landry coming up from the safety spot, playing run obviously all the way and getting the stop, and the Colts will send in the field goal group.
Right here, LaRon Landry, and he is the Troy Polamalu of this defense. We told you Mike Shanahan spent a lot of time with the Pittsburgh Steelers studying them, wanted to move to their style of 34, and LaRon Landry is his Troy Polamalu, and you saw it there.
43-yard attempt. Vinatieri missed one from 38. So this is 5 yards longer and true. right down the middle to give the Colts a double-digit lead. And that takes us officially to the 2-minute warning. 17-7 Colts. Exactly 2 minutes remaining in the half as McAfee kicks off. Fielded at the 7-yard line. This is Chad Simpson, a one-time Colt. And Simpson, against his former team, brings the ball back to the 38. So what about Donovan McNabb? He's had an interesting little run here through 5 games. Contacted by the defense on 28% of his passes, more than a quarter, and that's second most in the NFL with that revamped offensive line. And as you can see, much better first halves than second halves. And that was the case in Philadelphia. But last week, a different story. He had a much better second half than first half as they beat Green Bay in overtime. And they can only hope that that prevails again tonight as he throws and it's caught by Cooley for a gain of 7 to the 45-yard line. The Redskins have all of their timeouts.
Well, what's been amazing so far is that the Colts have had less time of possession in this game than has the Redskins. It feels like the Colts have had the ball the whole game.
Colts have run 36 plays, and this is Washington's 30th. And that'll be a first down. Short gain over the middle, caught by Moss. Ball spotted exactly on the 50-yard line. Angerer makes the tackle. First and 10.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Saving his timeouts.
This may be a good strategy for the Redskins with Angerer in the middle linebacker position. Make him make these calls.
And over the middle. That middle was open, and to the 37, and the first down goes Moss. And the Redskins looking over to the bench, and they will take their first time out here with 57 seconds to go. I'm hungry. What a week of bacon. What better week to be in?
For the Hogs.
The Hogs, of course. It's perfect.
Don't tell them, though. That wouldn't be good for Hogs. Now, is that supposed to be the Hogs' wives? I don't know that I've ever fully understood this.
Your guess is as good as mine. I ain't venturing there. All I know is that Russ Grimm is here, and he went into the Hall of Fame this year, and they're going to honor him at halftime, and it works out perfectly because he's on the Arizona staff, and they have a bye week.
So that's how you honor a Hog, huh?
That's how you do it.
Put on a dress and a nose, and go get them.
From the 37-yard line, McNabb throws. Cooley makes the catch. That takes it to the 30. They're in field goal range already. Session makes the tackle. Second down and 3. Donovan to the outside and behind the intended receiver. That's Joey Galloway, by almost 2 years, the oldest receiver in the National Football League. He's 38.
Yeah, I talked to Joey a little bit before the game, and he said, "Why'd you quit so soon? You can play this game forever." He said, "Really, when I got cut by Belichick last year, I just figured the rest of the league would think, oh, well, Belichick doesn't want him at 38 or whatever. Why should we?" Got the call from Kyle Shanahan, said, "Why not? I'll do it one more year."
But Arp wants him. 3rd and 3, and McNabb throws, and that pass intended for Galloway is incomplete, and that's Gerard Powers, who had an earlier pick, who's able to bat it at the last moment, making it 4th down and 3 and sending in the field goal unit.
This Gerard Powers has had a sensational game so far. Outside technique and still able to get back across the face of Galloway there. A very rare single high safety look out of the Colts. Donovan thought he had a big play, but Powers was just too good. That was sensational.
48-yarder for Gano. This is really big. If he misses this, Manning gets the ball back at his own 38 with almost a half a minute. And this kick is no good. So now, of all things, they don't score. They don't even get 3. And here comes Peyton. He's got 2 timeouts, and he has 24 seconds.
Peyton, he's not very aggressive. He'll probably just take a knee, and just run out the clock. And don't you think?
Might take a knee after a 40-yard gain to save a timeout.
Oh, boy. Well, for the Redskins, this game's going a little bit the same way the Packers game went. A lot A lot of possessions by a very good offense, and doesn't help to have your field goal kicker miss that one.
No, and that's been an issue here over the past couple of years. It looked like Gano was on his way to solving it, but a big miss here. Now Manning with time, Manning in the pocket, Manning over the middle, and that pass is incomplete, intended for Garcon, and that took 4 ticks off the clock.
It's amazing when you get a fresh pass rusher how different they look. Watch Arakpo here. This time goes right around Charlie Johnson and just misses the sack. If they're going to have any chance whatsoever, they're going to need Arakpo to start making some plays. He is the man on this defense.
And there's Garcon needing some attention over on the bench. 2nd down and 10, and that was going to be unimpeded to the quarterback, drawing the flag. But could have been Charlie Johnson.
Offside. Defense, number 98, unabated to the quarterback. 5-yard penalty, 2nd down.
Unimpeded, unabated. Take your pick.
Yeah, one of the two. And Pierre Garcon, who's had a monster first half here in this game. See if we can figure out what happened to him. Sometimes when those balls go right off the end of your finger, you can get a dislocation. Anything can happen from there.
He's had a hamstring issue, missed a good amount of practice time. This time it's the finger or hand, and the catch is made by Clark to the 49-yard line, and Indianapolis will take a timeout with 12 seconds remaining in the 2nd quarter. Here at FedEx Field, not an easy place to kick. Normally the wind swirls. Since '97, less than 70%, lowest home field goal percentage in the National Football League. Something you think you might see at maybe Candlestick Park, San Francisco, or a breezier place, but the wind current's enough here. And Vinatieri, meanwhile, on the other side, loosening up for what he hopes will be an attempt. Garcon out, and they bring Blair White, a rookie from Michigan State, into the lineup. He's number 15. And Manning checking the play clock, and then throws, and turning around and making the catch is the just mentioned Blair White, free agent rookie. So Garcon goes out. White comes in. That's 19 yards. 7 seconds remaining, and they'll give Vinatieri an opportunity to make it a 13-point game.
And a veteran player like D'Angelo Hall says, you have to be kidding me. A kid like Blair White comes in here and runs a back shoulder comeback on me, and now they're going to get a shot at a field goal. It's pretty amazing.
White's 6th catch of his rookie year. 48-yard attempt for Vinatieri. And that's no good. Redskins escape there after their missed field goal. And with 2 seconds remaining now, McNabb, if he so chooses, will have one opportunity at a Hail Mary.
Well, and remember, he can throw that thing 80 yards if he wants to. They're going to take a knee on this one.
You might remember what Dallas did the last time we were here at the end of the first half, just playing it safe. So the halftime score is Indianapolis 17, Washington 7. And don't forget that the Redskins won the opening toss and deferred, thus they will get the ball to start the second half, and away we go with the 3rd quarter with Brandon Banks taking the kick. Knifing his way up to the 25-yard line. Update from the field, and Andrea Kramer. Andrea.
Well, I asked Mike Shanahan, how do you slow down the breakneck pace of that Colts offense? And all he would talk about are the missed opportunities. He said our guys have to intercept those balls. He said you don't get opportunities like this very often with Peyton. You have to take advantage of it. As for Jim Caldwell, equally frustrated with their missed field goals. He said very simply, what they have to do is be more consistent on offense.
All right, thank you, Andrea. Mike, right on with that, because you had Rodgers with 2 interception chances, and Kareem Moore dropped one that was right in his lap From the 25-yard line on first down, they give it to Terrain. He's going to cut it back. And with good, tough running, a flag is down, however, back at the 28-yard line.
Holding, number 71, offense, 10-yard penalty, replay, first down.
The rookie Trent Williams, who was the number 4 overall pick in the draft out of Oklahoma.
Yeah, he's played a pretty good game, but he got a full grab on Pat Angerer's jersey that time. And one thing you have to remember, when you're playing tackle, you're out there in space. But it was good to see the Redskins coming back out. There he is right there. You see the grab at the end. Good call by the officials. But interesting, the two things that worked for the first half and the Washington Redskins was Ryan Terrain and their 2-minute offense. Let's see if they come back to both of them.
First down and 20 now. McNabb gets it away. Cooley, the intended receiver, and the coverage is outstanding that time. The pass is incomplete.
You know, Chris Cooley's got to make this play. It's the right decision here by McNabb. They're going in and working on the young middle linebacker, and just a little arrow route out of it. It's a good route. Everything's good. Well, a little bit too far out in front. But that's one of those that play has to be hit. They're making the right reads. They're making the right calls from the sideline. They get a penalty. They get a misconnection there between two veteran players. Can't beat the Colts like that.
Second down and 16 now from the 18-yard line. McNabb, after looking right, goes left, and that's a nice move after a would-be tackle by Fred Davis, who's able to get the ball all the way out to the 32-yard line. It will now be 3rd down and 4.
Well, before he was allowed to go out on the pass, Fred Davis had to do a little help on Dwight Freeney. You can see just trying to create the hesitation, and then Keelan Williams came by to fake the chip. We got a lot of people watching Dwight Freeney on that side.
Davis saw a lot of action last year because Cooley was hurt and missed more than half the season. 3rd down and 4. 3-man rush, and that's enough to put the heat on. And then Williams makes the grab. There's a flag, and Williams goes down shy of the first down. Keelan Williams, the rookie out of LSU, coming in on 3rd down plays. Rush 3, drop 8, and still put the heat on McNabb that time. Here's Parry.
Illegal block in the back, number 86 of the offense. That penalty's been declined. The result of the play, 4th down.
Take the down and make them punt. Foul on Davis.
We talked about the angles of Dwight Freeney. Watch how low he gets on Trent Williams this time. Right underneath him, and even on a little screen pass, almost gets to Donovan McNabb. Mathis on the other side. A little sandwich at the quarterback, and you're in dangerous territory now when you have a deficit to overcome against the Colts in these pass rushes.
Hunter Smith, a good deep and angle kick as well. Fair caught by Kenny Moore at the 16-yard line. Manning out for his first series of the second half. Look at those numbers. That's a good night's work, and that's just for 30 minutes.
Yeah, go back to the touchdown to Austin Collie. You could almost see the megabytes at work here inside this computer. Checking out all the defense. All right, yeah, I got that. If he comes, all right, then I'm going to throw it there. Check the play clock. All right, good. Let's snap this thing. Catch it, see it, fake it. Oh, this is easy. All right, touchdown. A lot of processing going on inside that brain.
This look like a walk in the park. 16-yard line. They begin this drive with a die run. And it's a 5-yard gain. He's tackled there by London Fletcher.
The one thing Peyton Manning talked about was, you know, it's all it does is no good at all to study film. Nobody else does this against anybody but the Colts. But the one thing about those stand-up linebackers walking around like that sure is tough to play the run.
On 2nd and 5, Manning loses the ball. It's loose at the 13-yard line. Was his arm coming forward or not? And the Redskins are going to come away with the football. Coming out of the pile with it was Andre Carter. And Manning, he's not even going to argue the case, and clearly his arm is not coming forward. We'll see it obviously on the replay here. But off he goes to the bench, and Washington with a huge takeaway.
Look at Robko here, get right around the corner, and well before that arm's going forward, he makes the play. Sometimes your superstars just have to do something extraordinary, and the times we've seen Arakpo make plays has been early in drives when he's fresh before that 2-minute hurry-up offense gets started. He had his legs and he made the play.
And Manning with the empty hand coming forward, so at the 13-yard line, Washington tries to cash in. The fake to Terrain. Rolling right as McNair throws across the middle. Caught. Cooley to the 5-yard line. Tackled by Muir. Gain of 8, 2nd and 2.
Great job by Chris Cooley in the backfield. He was just basically doing that chop block back across the way right here against Robert Mathis, trying to keep him under control. But he gets up, he hustles, he gets himself back into play, and all of a sudden there he is, because Donovan really had nowhere else to go. Good hustle, good heads-up play that time by Chris Cooley.
So it's 2nd down and 2. The ball is at the 5-yard line. Terrain is the back. Fake it to him again. Roll out again. Throw it out of the end zone. Armstrong covered well on the play by Justin Tryon. Now it's 3rd and 2.
Back-to-back bootleg calls when you're sitting down there next to the goal line. Pretty interesting calls. And now you're probably putting yourself in a must-pass sort of a situation. This is, boy, back in the Philadelphia days, you thought about Donovan running here, that little shovel pass that they used to like to run down here, get him moving one direction, then flip it back across the other way.
Those numbers going back to Philadelphia last year, 43% completion. Fake toss to Banks. Pass caught. Cooley will get a 1st down. Short of the end zone, but it moves the chains. So a little fake toss that time to Brandon Banks, who came into the game, and then a pass to Cooley to the 1.
3 bootlegs in a row. You motion the little guy back into the backfield. That's a play they had run earlier this season, and run the bootleg off of it again. Maybe you could anticipate 2 straight bootlegs, but I don't think the Colts were thinking about 3 straight, and they got him.
Now Terrain in behind Mike Sellers, the fullback, providing leverage. The 270-pound Sellers. And Terrain will take it into the end zone for a Redskin touchdown. Get in behind Sellers is like getting in behind a moving van.
And he moved it on into the end zone right here, too. There, Mike Sellers in the backfield, going to lead the way. And on the inside, it was Corey Lichtensteiger pinning in the young rookie linebacker, Pat Angerer, that made the difference.
Now Gano for the point after. And for so many years, it's been the Colts who kill teams with that sack fumble. A taste of their own medicine right there. Manning gives it up. Washington scores, and it's a 3-point game early in the 3rd. Thomas Jefferson Memorial on this gorgeous October 17th night, 17-14. Indianapolis, 10-point halftime lead, shaved to 3 after the big takeaway. Arakpo with that sack fumble, and then Washington cashes in, and now Gano will send the ball down to the 8-yard line with Kenny Moore. A decent run back. Brings the ball out to the 33-yard line. Let's go to Andrea.
Well, we saw Pierre Garçon hurt his hand at the end of the first half. Well, the beginning of the 3rd quarter, I saw them taping his pinky and ring fingers together. Then he practiced catching the ball, gripping the ball, and then they retaped the fingers again, and he's obviously back in action.
So there is Garçon right now, who made a spectacular one-handed catch with his right hand. He's caught 4 balls tonight, including one for a touchdown, 103 yards overall. That touchdown was 57. Now Manning goes to work at the 33. On that stretch play. And a dive. is going to stretch that defense and break away from tackles and finally get taken down, but not until he gets to the 20-yard line. Buchanan chases him down, and that's a 46-yard run to the consternation of Mike Shanahan.
Yeah, and look at how they set up. They've got one guy here, they've got one guy there, and nobody else on that side of the line of scrimmage. Peyton Manning said, "Thank you very much." Handed off to Joseph Adai. You guys walk around all you want.
Longest run of Adai's career. Now Wayne slant, 3-yard gain, tackled by Dowdy at the 17-yard line.
And Peyton has them moving so fast now defensively. I know they can't be making a call because they're not even getting lined up. That time they weren't even close to being lined up to play defense.
2nd and 6 from the 17. Adai goes the other way. 13-yard line. One thing the Colts have had this year, and for a number of years, in fact, for the most part, running the ball. And that's why with Adai, a big play to go 46. There it is, rushing yards per game, 28th out of 32 coming into the game. 3rd and 3. Snapping it with a play clock at 1. And then a big run through the middle. Adai bounces his way like a bowling ball through pins into the end zone for a touchdown. Joseph Adai last week had to come out of the game and got bounced on his head, neck and shoulder injury. Limited somewhat in practice this week, but don't tell Washington after that drive.
Reed Dowdy, a safety, is forced to play the linebacker position, and he just can't get there to make a play like that. Peyton said, "You want to play your safeties down, you want to play a dime defense on 3rd and 3, we'll run it." And there's your touchdown.
Vinatieri for the point after. So the Redskins get a big score, and Indianapolis says, take that in response. Back to a 10-point advantage, 24-14. Now the kickoff is fielded 5 yards in the end zone, and Banks is going to take it out. And the trap. Lost the ball for a moment. Make sure he secures it back at the 13-yard line, and back we go to Adai blasting through the middle.
Let's take a look at a guy like Lorenzo Alexander here now. He's going to end up getting double teamed. He's standing up. Now anybody can tell you that you're not going to be able to take on a double team standing up in that kind of position. They just drive those guys right out of there. And for Peyton Manning, yet another masterpiece he's painting out here tonight. Whatever it is that they want to do, he has an answer for it.
And they've got a ground game tonight, too. They're averaging, are the Colts, 8 yards per rush. Ball at the 14-yard line. Terrain has had a good night himself. Terrain working the outside, and then coming up the shoulder and out of bounds is Gerard Powers after a gain of 2 yards. 2nd and 8.
Yeah, that was a bad cut that time by Ryan Terrain. He had the cutback available to him, and he tried to bounce it outside. That's not really his game. You'll see he could have cut that one right back into the hole there. Had a lot of blocking, and that's where it was designed to go. Sometimes as a young player, you try to get a little creative, and the coaches will tell you the same thing. We drew it up this way for a reason. Run it.
Terrain averaging 5 yards a carry tonight. McNabb in trouble, but he's able to get away. And at least he saves a sack, and Sellers bounces off tacklers. And Mike Sellers, all 270 pounds of him, gets it out to the 28-yard line. That's a gain of 12 after it looked like a sack and then maybe no gain, and Session is down on one knee, and it's a first down.
Dwight Freeney with a great inside move is going to get his hands on Donovan McNabb, but McNabb, as he's done throughout his career, just too big, too strong. But this is one of the best plays I've seen this year. Not only McNabb's end of it, Mike Sellers, 1, 2, 3, nobody. These guys are big and strong, but they're not big and strong enough to bring him down. Well, I tell you, the Redskins needed something like that.
Busted away from Pat Angerer to turn it into a big play. First down, the ball at the 28. And McNabb, before it breaks down, gets it off the Sellers again. And this time going down to make the tackle Philip Wheeler.
Well, for Trent Williams, there were a lot of questions about whether or not he could even play in this game. We looked at him in practice. He has a bad toe, he has a bad ankle, he has a bad calf, and a bad knee, all on that left-hand side. But he has been terrific. He was telling us from day one he wanted to be a Washington Redskin. He was absolutely thrilled when they made the pick, and he had visited here a few times, got to know some of the guys, and was excited.
Look over for Chris Samuels, who did such stellar work on that terrain. Breaks away from a tackle, and he gets back to the 31-yard line. Fili Moala couldn't bring him down initially, but they hold him to a short gain. To his own 33-yard line. It'll be third down, 3rd and 6. It's actually a loss of 1, as it turns out.
Well, one of the things that the Redskins did a great job of in the first half that they haven't come back to yet was trying to wall off everybody inside on a run and force these cornerbacks like Kelvin Hayden to make tackles against a guy the size of Brian Terrain. I guess as we'll see it eventually here in this half.
3rd and 6. And McNabb fires into traffic, and Cooley can't make the catch. Into coverage, Powers is there. Colts stop him, and the Redskins send in the punting unit.
Well, for Gerard Powers, it has just been a nearly perfect game so far. That was about as tough a play to try and make. He had a tight end between himself and the ball, and somehow got over the top without a pass interference call. And I don't know if he knocked it away, but at least distracted him.
Hunter Smith with a low liner. Moore at the 21-yard line. And he fumbles. And the Redskins appear to have it at the 40-yard line. Second fumble for Moore tonight, and the Redskins get another big break. And I think it was Lorenzo Alexander who came in and jarred it loose.
Redskins had to have a break, and for Lorenzo Alexander, here's a guy that made his living on special teams, still the leading tackler on special teams. We saw a big hit earlier in this ball game from Chris Wilson. And I tell you, it's been Danny Smith's special teams that has kept the Redskins in it thus far.
Roydell Williams getting there first, and then coming in to dislodge it, Lorenzo Alexander. Byron Westbrook recovers the ball at the 39-yard line.
It is great to see guys that earn their way up the ladder via special teams. You know how when they're never going to be in the starting lineup. They're just holding on to the team, and then they keep playing special teams, and they keep making plays, and they keep doing things like this to create opportunities, and all of a sudden they make so many plays on special teams. They think, why not? Let's give him a chance on defense. And then he got the chance on defense and took over the starting job from Andre Carter. And it's those kind of success stories in this league. So much fun to watch.
Alexander can play on both sides of the ball, linebacker, defensive and offensive line up in the backfield even offensively. Now Terrain, and Terrain with a burst. Terrain breaking tackles, and Terrain is finally forced out of bounds at the 14-yard line.
Well, we've seen it all day long. Chris Cooley or the wide receivers sealing that corner right here. They're going to get outside, set the edge, and then go up and get the next guy. Good block by Joey Galloway down the field. That's where they've been successful. And I tell you, as this game goes along, Galloway down the field, you'll see here. Good block by the old man on the outside, too.
Terrain is now rushed for 99 yards. On the other side, a dive for 111. Can he go to the century mark? Yes, he can. He takes it inside the 10, gets to the 8-yard line. And again, going back to the fact this is a team, their running game was going to be probably Clinton Portis. They brought in Larry Johnson. They brought in Willie Parker. And then Terrain. Terrain is the guy, and I'll say he might be the guy for the future, too.
Well, you know, against the Colts, he is the absolute right guy. I mean, this is a small defense. late in game, as the defense starts to wear down, it's hard to get this monster on the ground.
2nd and 4. Give it to him again. And this time he gets spun down, and who else but Powers having a big night, knocking him down at the 10-yard line.
Yeah, he just is trying to bounce it a little bit too much. There's nothing wrong. I think that was an intentional cutback play there, but the hole was back up inside. You know, he's trying to make something great out of it. He's going to cut it all the way back, where if he just follows his offensive lineman in there, he's going to have something. He might even have picked up the first down. So just a little lack of discipline, maybe a little lack of experience there cost him.
3rd and 6 out of the gun. McNabb flanked by Keelan Williams. Under pressure, and McNabb will go down, contacted back at the 22-yard line, and that was Clint Session coming in and just getting enough of Donovan to knock him down.
This double-A gap blitz that we see from so many teams, and this time it's Clint Session coming free, but watch this. He's fooled really on the play. Pump fake. Session goes out of the way. And I guess he tripped him. I have no idea.
Blind sack. 39-yard attempt for Graham Gano to try to make it a one-possession game. And he does with a little bit of a draw. 3:53 left in the third. It's the Colts by 7. Graham Gano. His kick fielded 6-yard line. This is Justin Tryon, former Redskin, returning against his ex-mates, and brings it back out to the 25-yard line with 3:45 left in the penultimate quarter. 24-7 Indianapolis. Two guys who were both big stars in college, thus they were drafted. One was number 1, one was number 2. Peyton Manning on top of the 98 draft, and McNabb drafted 2nd. Who were the other guys? Well, of course, Ryan Leaf was number 2. That was a disaster by San Diego in 98. Cleveland came back into the league in 99. They went for Tim Couch. Remember, the Philly fans were so upset, they wanted Ricky Williams. They booed McNabb. They would have done the same to Tim Couch.
No question about it. And how'd it work out there in Philly?
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
Ball is at the 25-yard line for the Colts. Mike Hart starts in the backfield here. Here's Colley. He takes it to the 30-yard line. You know, we were talking about Indianapolis at the very beginning of the game, and last year at this point, 5-0 on their way to 14-0 on their way to going to the Super Bowl. This is a big game tonight. All of a sudden, that division is pretty interesting. Houston with a big win today against Kansas City. Tennessee, they can beat you. Jacksonville looks good all of a sudden. Colts do not want to go to 3-3 in the bye week.
Got to beat the Colts, though, to win that division. Houston's got 1.
Yep. And Jacksonville's got 1, too.
Those 2, yeah.
2nd and 5. And Colley again off that screen up to the 39-yard line. A lot of action out in front of him. Setting up a barbed wire escort. First down.
You know what's so frustrating is they're trying to get a guy like LaRon Landry and all his speed in there on a blitz, and Peyton just flips that little screen out there and it does you no good at all.
And they've got Hart again up to the 43-yard line.
And they're back to that pace again. You know, they're back to where they started. They were a little slower after the half, but now you're starting to see the full effect one more time. And the Redskins defensively, they just got to find another Arakpo, another interception opportunity. You got to do something to create an opportunity for yourself to get the ball back.
Colts are already closing in on 400 yards near the end of the quarter, and again this time they go to Reggie Wayne and set up that barbed wire screen to the 48-yard line of Washington.
And the key to it really is the blocking of the receivers themselves. Austin Collie that time with the key block, just able to get enough on the outside to set this one up. You can see Buchanan was really in pretty good position, just nipped him a little bit. Good enough.
They dive back in with 1:40 in the quarter. Give it to Adai, and this time he gets stopped. This time he can't get out of the backfield, and that's Vonnie Holliday, now playing in his 13th season in the league, making the tackle.
Yeah, and interesting, the only defensive lineman with his hand on the ground that time, playing a true defensive line position, was Vonnie Holliday, and he made the play. Hope the Redskins are in good shape.
2nd and 10. This time the Redskins with 2 defenders with their hands down and a whistle before the snap. And a false start.
False start. Number 85. Offense. 5-yard penalty. 2nd down.
Garcon.
Yeah, the new guard in there, Kyle Devan, right here, is going to look between his legs when Peyton gives him the all ready. He's going to signal Jeff Saturday, who's up reading the defense the entire time, helping Peyton Manning make those line calls. They want Jeff Saturday in his brain scanning the field.
2nd and 15. And Peyton's going to go deep over the middle and find his man at the 34-yard line. That's Reggie Wayne cutting over the middle, picking up the 1st down and turning a 2nd and 15 into a 1st down with a gain of 19 yards.
And the problem is the game plan for the Redskins today was to try and get that middle pressure, and they're getting stuffed.
Now a dive. A dive to the 28-yard line. That's going to take us to the end of the quarter. Colts now have 409 yards on offense. 24-17 Indy into 3. Sunday Night Football resumes after these messages. FedEx Field, Landover, Maryland. Dal Michaels, Chris Collinsworth, Andrew Kramer start the 4th quarter. The Redskins will start it without a man who was deactivated tonight, Albert Hainsworth. His half-brother died in a motorcycle accident a week and a half ago. Dan Snyder gave him his plane to go down for the funeral and the service, and they actually had a motorcycle ride in his honor in South Carolina, went back to Nashville, got back to town after a 6-day absence, and was told on Thursday that he was not going to be active tonight. 2nd down and 4. Here's a dive. Of course, Chris, going back to the offseason, that was maybe the biggest of the stories after Shanahan comes in. They had Hainsworth last year, a purported $100 million deal, of which who knows what he's going to wind up with, given by Dan Snyder. And, of course, that's not what you call a return on your investment.
I'd like to channel him into Reggie White somewhere and let him have a conversation, you know, when your highest paid.
Oh, ball is loose again. Redskins think they've come away with it, and they have, unless the play was whistled dead. LaRon Landry comes out of the pile, but Kedrick Golston created the fumble, and it will be a turnover. So Adai goes down. Adai is hurt. Adai giving up the football, and Washington comes away with Indianapolis' 3rd lost fumble.
And London Fletcher delivered a blow right on the head of Joseph Adai. And remember, he came into this game with a neck injury. Has played awfully well here tonight, and London Fletcher just loaded up on him. It was a perfectly clean hit. Remember, that's not a defenseless player. Blow to the head, all allowed on running plays.
7-point game, and the Redskins get a big break again. So Joseph Adai, we've been talking about the fact he landed on his head last week and had to come out of the game. Limited in practice, and now he takes another blow here after a tremendous night for him. Longest run of his career, 46 yards, 128 yards on the ground. And London Fletcher trying to make sure that he's as well as he can be right now. One more look at the shot, which creates the fumble. Yep.
No question it's out. Let's see whether or not Landry had the right to pick this thing up. If he's not.
But Garcon may have just grazed him as he was on the ground, but nothing to challenge on Washington's part. The play was whistled dead.
No question.
After the recovery. So now the ball is at the 17-yard line. And the Redskins down by 7, begin this drive. Short drop by McNabb, and the catch is made on the outside by Anthony Armstrong up to the 20-yard line. The Colts, through the years, going back to Tony Dungy, and they'll take a dive back, they've averaged less than 1 fumble a game each of the last 5 seasons. But 11 fumbles in 6 games this year, 4 tonight. So a very unusual situation. Of course, Tony Dungy for years preached ball security, don't turn the ball over. And Caldwell, a disciple of Tony, is the same way. 2nd down and 6. And going to the ground and making the catch that time short of the first down is Fred Davis, setting up a 3rd and 1.
Yeah, and Fred Davis, you see Joseph Adai, who really never fumbles. 1 fumble every 187 runs, so very unusual. But Fred Davis, a guy that many people thought would be a star this year. A lot of people thought it'd be a 2 tight end sort of set with Davis and Cooley, and Davis came on after Cooley's injury last year. A lot of touchdowns, but really this season it just hasn't worked out that way. He just hasn't been the factor that everybody thought.
3rd and 1, and a toss to Rain to the outside, and this time no, cannot turn the corner, and gets taken down out of bounds. And that time it's Powers who is there, and he comes up a little shaky.
Boy, I tell you, Clint Session came out of nowhere, and his health and his energy has made such a huge difference for this football team. You saw it last week in the game against Kansas City, and pure speed that time is what stopped that play. Great play.
Hunter Smith, the longtime Colt kicker. Line drive pick fielded at the 28-yard line, and that was Powers bringing it back out to the 35 with 12:48 left in the 4th. 24-17 Colts. That's a shot about 40 miles up the road, the Inner Harbor in Baltimore. Why did we show you that? Well, the Colts, the history of the Colts. Even people in Baltimore don't want to be reminded, but they played 31 seasons there. 222 wins. Indianapolis, 27 seasons, 222 wins. 14 seasons before Manning. Take a look at that. A .395 percentage. Post Peyton, well, they win more than 2 games out of every 3. Mike Hart is the back with a dive back in the locker room. They fake it to him, and then the pass over the middle is caught by Dallas Clark, and they've been containing Clark tonight. For Dallas, he has caught a number of passes. That is his 5th, but for only 28 yards, so only 6 yards per catch.
And they're not beating on him the way that teams have the last several weeks. Kansas City played 2 guys over him in the old sort of New England Patriot style and just beat him up all day.
2nd and 6. And there is Clark, and that 6-yard average will go up significantly as he takes it to the Washington 36-yard line, a gain of 24.
If you've watched the Colts, you know this move, a little out and back in. And Reed Dowdy bit on it, and there you go. Now you know why the Kansas City Chiefs didn't want Dallas Clark getting off the line of scrimmage. He seems to be the guy when things are getting a little tough. Peyton loves to find number 44, and teams that take him away sometimes have good success.
They're the spinners on offense and defense both. The 36-yard line. Hart, gaping hole, and a 10-yard gain, depending on the spot for the first down at the 26-yard line.
Well, once again, Reed Dowdy getting picked on. He's the linebacker in there. They're playing the dime defense, as you sometimes do. But when you ask a safety to play linebacker, then tackles like Charlie Johnson are going to wear him out.
And they spot him inches short of the first down at the 26.
Free play, though, for Peyton. He can do about anything on this one.
And they give it to Hart. Chucks his way for a first down at the 24-yard line. Ticking down to 10 minutes left in regulation.
That was just a huge defensive series by that Colts defense. After that turnover to get a 3 and out. That was a rare substitution allowed by Peyton Manning. Not often you see him get a sub in that he doesn't take advantage.
And Hart gets stopped in his tracks. That's Andre Carter, big number 99. No gain, second down and 10.
And Andre Carter really is a guy that is moved back inside. They tried him at outside linebacker. It didn't go so well.
161 on the ground tonight, double their average. 128 for a die. Hart has carried 7 times for 33 yards.
Peyton saw LaRon Landry coming.
Second and 10. Pressure up the middle, but it's picked up and almost picked off again. That one a little short. And Kareem Moore had to go down, but couldn't scoop it. Third and 10.
Kareem Moore does a little flip turn at the tail end of this, and it probably cost him an interception. Top right of your screen. He was looking to the outside, and he just had to flip around to try and find it, and by that time he couldn't get back to it.
Big stop needed here by the Redskin D. Third and 10 at the 25-yard line. And Manning, with a play clock to 2, is going to call a timeout. So Peyton saw plenty. That's as demonstrative as you'll ever see him. Came right up to the line of scrimmage, almost had his head over the line of scrimmage, and finally a timeout.
Yeah, he got frustrated. He saw exactly what he wanted to do. They were checking themselves out of the blitz. I think he thought he saw blitz as they were coming up. He got him to sort of show, you know how he does the dummy snap count. And here they come. Oh, boy. Okay, now I'm going to change this thing. But he looks up at the play clock, and it's a little bit too late before he can get it off. That's the game. That dummy snap count forces defense to show their blitzes, and that's when Peyton goes to work.
Third and 10. This play resumes at the 24-yard line.
That time he saw just the opposite. He saw Landry going backwards.
They'll keep it on the ground. They'll give it to Hart, and Hart comes close to getting a first down. He's going to be about a yard shy. He takes the ball to the 15-yard line. So now it's going to be 4th and 1. And Caldwell is going to send in the field goal group.
Kyle Devan, the new left guard who got the starting assignment this week, did a heck of a job on Vonnie Holiday there, but just enough. And obviously this is the right decision. You want to stretch this lead at this point to 10 points.
Make it a 2-possession game. Vinatieri, a 33-yard field goal attempt. And Adam Vinatieri, who may wind up in the Hall of Fame someday, makes it 27-17. .841 remaining in the fourth quarter. And Pat McAfee's boot taken 2 yards in by Brandon Banks. And Banks gets tripped up as he crosses the 25-yard line, and a penalty.
Illegal unsportsmanlike. Creating a wedge. 3 men forming a wedge. Spot foul, half the distance. 1st and 10.
New rule and implemented here.
Yeah, it used to be you could have as big a wedge as you wanted. Now you're only allowed these 2 guys to form a wedge. And when number 64, Golston, comes in there, that makes a 3-man wedge, and that's the penalty. And the reason they do it is safety. They don't want to see that big wall of humanity coming running down the field. The feeling is they could get around a 2-man wedge. The 3-man wedge, the 4-man wedge, too dangerous. Probably a good idea by the league.
Almost all the new rules these days have a safety component, and it's a good thing. 8.5 left. Ball at the 7. Keelan Williams starts in the backfield. You're going to see a heavy dose of passing here, and they start with a pass to Moss, who's had a quiet second half, his first catch of the half. Let's check in with Andrea.
Well, Al, tight end Chris Cooley ruled out with a concussion. As for the Colts, Joseph Adai, I walked up the tunnel with him. He looked dazed the entire time, needed assistance into the locker room. He's being evaluated for a shoulder injury. They're calling his return questionable.
Well, that's 2 weeks in a row. Thank you, Andrea, for Adai having to come out of the game. And Washington loses a big man in Cooley, which means we'll see Davis the rest of the way. And there he is in motion with a 1st and 10. The ball is at the 21-yard line. And McNabb will dump it off over the middle. Keelan Williams. And Williams out to the 27-yard line, the rookie out of LSU.
Pretty clever read that time by Keelan Williams as he was getting out. Dwight Freeney's spin move takes him back inside. Williams was waiting for him right there. Gets the chip and still available for the check down. Sometimes they want to set outside on Dwight Freeney and invite that little spin move inside, and they were waiting for it.
2nd and 3 at the 28-yard line. And McNabb avoids the sack, throws, and completes it. And that's going to be a first down for Moss. Or very close to it. Puts it right on the yellow line.
I mean, that's unbelievable. Robert Mathis had him dead to rights and couldn't get him on the ground. And then Donovan McNabb, who can throw it 80 yards with the flip of the wrist, just somehow manages to get this thing out of his hand and get the completion. You know, so many of the Redskins' big plays this year have come when McNabb has made somebody miss, bought an extra 3 or 4 seconds, and then just throws it way down the field.
Mathis a breather on the sideline on 1st and 10 now from the 31-yard line. McNabb has that one tipped, and it's incomplete. Davis can't hold on. It'll be 2nd down. Plays being called into McNabb by Kyle Shanahan, one of the youngest offensive coordinators in the league, son of Mike, who last year was the offensive coordinator, did all of the play calling with the Houston Texans, and of course Matt Schaub and that offense had a pretty good season.
That they did, and they certainly know how to work their combination of plays. I think they're still a work in progress on this offensive side. Train's had a good night tonight, but boy, they really missed Clinton Portis.
2nd and 10. McNabb guns it over the middle and wide open at the 50-yard line. That is Anthony Armstrong for a first down.
Well, now the Colts are starting to go to some of that single high safety look, and Anthony Armstrong's just going to give it one of these little post routes. And Donovan McNabb, when he steps into a throw, it's coming in there. He can leave a dent on your chest, and Anthony Armstrong's been a little quiet tonight, but he is their big play guy right now. He did it last week against the Packers.
4 catches tonight, tons of speed. Here's Moss again. And every play on this drive a pass, and it would figure down by 10. You know Manning's going to get the ball back in all likelihood. You got to score, and you got to score fairly quickly.
Yeah, they need to crank this up a little bit. You know, I mean, this clock is ticking, and you can't assume that you're going to get a 3 and out from Peyton Manning. And you got to go. You know, they had success in that no huddle at the end of the first half. Let's go a little bit here.
Exactly right. 5:20 and ticking down on 2nd down and 4. And that's caught. Davis, that's a first down, but again, that's going to chew up some of the clock. The ball is at the 38, and Davis will jaw with the thigh, and that will chew up a little bit more of the clock.
Well, and Donovan had to put his shoe back on again, and you know, it's kind of interesting here that really the Colts defensive ends are getting a little bit of what the rest of the league usually sees out of them. They're getting worn down a little bit and not being allowed to substitute so easily.
Now from the 38, look out. McNabb feels it, escapes, throws. And again, a completed pass with a short gain. Keelan Williams, and we're ticking down to 4.5. And the crowd sensing the urgency of the moment.
Yeah, here's the play where Donovan came out of his shoe on this one. Just got stepped on coming back and standing there barefooted making the throw.
They have all their timeouts, Chris, plus the 2-minute warning, but right now, of essence, is getting it down the field more quickly. 2nd and 9. That is caught over the middle. And that's Galloway, and he'll take it to the 18-yard line for a first down.
Well, Joey Galloway, nothing really special on the route, just kind of knew where the hole in the zone was. He's not trying to beat anybody individually, just a smart veteran player who understood and played 2 deep safeties. There's a big gap in there, and they're going after the middle linebacker, Pat Anger.
18-yard gain. Now they're going to trick him on the ground with Williams, the rookie, and he bounces his way down to the 5-yard line. So with the middle left exposed by Indianapolis, they give it to Williams, and it's 1st and goal with 3.5 to play.
Watch the rookie linebacker going back here in his Tampa 2 defense. He's probably 15 yards deep by the time the center, Casey Raubach, gets up on him.
Now McNabb to the line. Down to 3 minutes we go. McNabb again so many times tonight. Now you've got a flag, though. Donovan's going to run. Donovan's going to run it in, but you saw a flag come in, which normally indicates holding, and that will be the call. Holding against Washington.
Number 71, offense, 10-yard penalty, replay, first down.
That's Trent Williams.
You just got the arm outside just a bit here. Trent Williams in a big battle all night long, but watch this left arm. Kind of gets it outside the frame, and once that happens, pretty easy for the officials to see. Trent Williams said, "Get out of here. Got my hands full over here. Give me a break."
Second holding call on the rookie tonight. The ball is at the 15-yard line. 1st and goal. Bookends back in. McNabb swings it to the outside. Moss gets out of bounds. That'll stop the clock. The ball is at the 8-yard line. It'll be 2nd down and goal.
Yep, and you're setting up a tough situation. Regardless, it's 2 scores from here. So whatever you do, do it fast and get yourself an opportunity, because right now it looks like that Peyton Manning, no matter what happens here, is 1 first down away from being able to lock it up.
Well, they still have all their timeouts in the 2-minute warning, but no matter which way they go here, field goal or touchdown, you still have to think about an onside kick considering it's Manning. Here's McNabb throwing, touchdown, Williams. So they go with the rookie, Keelan Williams. They don't need terrain in this situation. The rookie out of LSU takes it in, and that's 92 yards in a dozen plays.
Well, you're going to see Donovan McNabb checking everybody out. Completely blown coverage here on this one. There is simply nobody outside on Keelan Williams. Thought for a minute might have been a little pick play on that play, but it wasn't. It was just man coverage, and whoever it was supposed to have Keelan Williams, it may have been Anger, or just didn't get there.
And so the first touchdown of Keelan Williams' career, and Gano's extra point makes it a 3-point game with 2:46 left in Landover, Maryland. Windows of the White House on this Sunday night. At about a 40-minute drive away. Strategy time. Mike Shanahan. 2:46. You got the 2-minute warning. He has all of his timeouts. You got Peyton Manning on the other side, and Indianapolis taking no chances. Of course, they're going to put all of their guys up at the 40-yard line for a potential onside kick. I'm wondering, Chris, do you send a bouncing ball down into the middle here?
It's exactly what I was just thinking, Al. Look at the space. Switch shots on it, but back in behind this, you don't necessarily have to go the onside kick. There are spaces in here with only one guy deep to where you can have a ball bouncing around a little bit. Your guys are running full speed. You've got one guy back. If somebody could come down and get a hit on the return man, all of a sudden it's 6 or 7 of your guys and nobody from their team represented.
The only guy deep for Indy is Justin Tryon. And they will send it deep, and they'll send Tryon all the way back to his 4-yard line. And he'll bring it back to the 20-yard line. All right, so now you got a defense that has given up tonight a total of 469 yards. Peyton Manning on the other side, but you're going to get 4 clock stoppages.
So even if they pick up a first down because of the 2-minute warning, you probably would still have a chance if you stop them the next series of getting it back with 35, 40 seconds to go get your field goal.
I think a big key is stopping them on the early downs. Garcon still not back in the game. Blair White caught a pass at the end of the first half. He's in the game, and Manning will throw, and Manning will have it batted down. And that's Philip Buchanan, intended for Reggie Wayne. Second down.
Huge play by Philip Buchanan. Goes in the back door this time. We saw earlier a play off the front side. This time Buchanan just gets his arm back around the outside. And now it's 2nd and 10. A lot of possibilities. Now you want to dial up a blitz. Here's your shot.
Manning rolling left and throws, and that's dropped. Dallas Clark at the 30-yard line.
LaRon Landry with a great strip on that one. Perfect coverage. You knew it was going to be Dallas Clark, and Landry just right there to make the play. Man coverage across the field. Here it is. Perfect throw. 2 knockdowns so far in 2 plays.
Well, this couldn't be more perfect for Washington. They don't have to use a timeout. Only a few seconds were off the clock. Clark was shaken up on that play, so he has to come out. Garcon has had to come out, and Adai is back in the locker room. So Manning doesn't have all of his weapons. Jacob Tammy comes in Clark's spot. 3rd and 10.
I would be watching Austin Collie closely on this one.
Slot left is Collie. Manning looking that way. Manning throwing, and that's batted away. Philip Buchanan, intended for Reggie Wayne. So 3 big plays by the secondary.
You cannot do any better than Philip Buchanan this time. Right out here. Watch him turn his head around right at the last minute and knock this thing away. What a defensive series by Philip Buchanan and by LaRon Landry. And here we go, because now, not just field goal an opportunity, you get a touchdown and win it.
That was the perfect 3 and out. Didn't have to use a timeout. Booming kick. Banks from the 21-yard line. Has some blocking this side, but can't get around the corner and down the sideline. It's taken down at the 38-yard line with 2:13.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, the Washington Redskins sure have a way of keeping it interesting, don't they?
Well, they've already played 2 overtime games this year. We had the Dallas game as well.
Yep, last play.
Last play. Phillies beat San Francisco 6-1 to even the National League Championship Series. Those of you watching that one, this one has been tight. Indy's been ahead almost all the way, but now a 3-point lead in jeopardy. Washington with all of its timeouts from the 37. McNabb will throw caught 42-yard line. That's taken in by Armstrong. And that's going to take us to the 2-minute warning. All 3 timeouts, the ball at their own 43, and 2nd down and 5 when we come back to FedEx Field. Another beauty on Sunday Night Football. And the ball is at the 43-yard line.
Couple of things, Al. You've got a rookie linebacker in the game and Pat Angerer, and you've got Aaron Francisco at safety who's just joined the team. So if you're looking for a spot down the field, one of those two would work.
2nd and 5. McNabb is going to get taken down back at the 37-yard line. Trying to escape. One time too many. Eric Foster and Robert Mathis are there for a big sack, and now Washington is going to use its first timeout.
You know, it really wasn't a bad job that time by Jamal Brown. It was just Robert Mathis was smart enough to figure out that McNabb was going to step up on this play. So Brown gets him shut off. Mathis goes underneath for the step up and makes the sack. There's a reason why those guys have all the sacks that they do. And how many games have we done, Al, where it gets down to, you know, final drive time and you got a chance to beat the Colts, but you got to go the length of the field and you can't block Mathis and you can't block Freeney.
Yeah, so often masters of the sack fumble always seem to be there. McNabb tonight escaping numerous times. Near sacks, he's been able to get out of the grasp, turn losses into gains or at least incompletions, but that right there, a big sack. It's 3rd down and 10 with 1:53, obviously in 4-down situation here. McNabb at his own 38-yard line. Over the middle, and that's incomplete, and that was Angerer right there getting a hand in intended for Keelan Williams.
Well, they had the opportunity. This is all you can ask for. Keelan Williams is going to come out of the backfield and run a route right here, one-on-one. Look at all the football field on either side, and Angerer just made the coverage look easy. It wasn't much of a route at all by Keelan Williams. You just have to think, boy, if Clinton Portis were around here, that would have been a golden one.
All right, well, you talk about a golden one. This has to be the golden play call. On 4th down and 10. And McNabb pump faking. He's going to go deep downfield into double coverage and not even close. Armstrong had Bethea and Francisco right with him, and so they turned the ball over in their own territory to the Colts. Now the Colts cannot run the clock all the way out because Washington has 2 timeouts. But this would be a miracle for him to pull this one off.
Yeah, pretty interesting play call there on 4th and 10 to throw one all the way over the top. They were trying to get the safeties to bite, but there was an opportunity out here. Fred Davis, after his chip, he had a little space. They try to get their fastest guy going right down the middle of the field, but watch Davis. He's going to get a little chip on Mathis. Everybody's backing up pretty far. If you'd gotten the ball there, looked like an opportunity to pick it up.
And now Manning will compel Washington to use its 2 timeouts. Here's Clark. This will be one right here, and they'll have 1 left, and that'll stop the clock with 1:36 remaining.
Well, there certainly have been a lot of opportunities for this Redskins defense this evening, and they happened early on. Carlos Rogers with a dropped interception. Had one more opportunity, that one a little tougher. And then Kareem Moore had one right in the breadbasket. And sometimes, especially against the Colts, you can't allow them to get up early. You know, this is a team, they are a great front-running team. When they get a lead, they hold it. And for Jim Caldwell and his squad, they just need 1 first down, and this one's over.
Might not even need that because they can run more time off the clock even on 3rd down, and if they have to pooch punt it on 4th, and Washington wouldn't have a timeout. But first things first, it's 2nd down and 9. Ball is at the 37-yard line. And Harlow gets taken down at the line of scrimmage. So the defense does all it can do on those 2 plays. Now you have 1:30. So you run a play here, then you go under a minute, and then of course it depends on what you want to do on 4th down. In all likelihood, you would think, if it's 4th down and whatever it's going to be, punt.
Yeah, it was interesting watching LaRon Landry make that play. There's a guy that, talking about loving football, he was too young to play in the junior football league. He was only 5 years old, so he came up with a fake ID at 5 to play in the junior football league. And at 5 in a league that had 6, 7, and 8-year-olds, they called him the Hammer. He played middle linebacker thanks to his fake ID at 5 years old.
Fake ID in kindergarten. Kids, don't do that at home. Third down. The 38-yard line. Dallas Clark is back in the game. Sets up on the right side, tight. Keep it on the ground. Hart. And again, the defense does all it can do right now. So that's going to take us down to 50 or so seconds. And the Colts will have a fourth down. For the moment, they're going to leave their offense out and just spend all the time they can off the clock.
Then it's a little bit of an interesting decision to make there.
Well, Payton, if nothing else, is trying to get an offside.
That's not
well. And yeah, I would have been shocked if they would have snapped it. I mean, why give Washington the ball at the 38-yard line?
Offense, number 18, 5-yard penalty, fourth down.
Yeah, especially in this particular situation, it doesn't matter. Washington might even decline that penalty because what they'd like to do is give the punter McAfee a little extra room here to angle one.
Yeah, and sometimes it's hard for those punters to take a little off. It's like a half wedge, you know. They like being back a little bit, and so they can take a full swing. But now these punters are also good at that reverse spin ball. Not many of these balls go kicking into the end zone anymore.
Well, if you got a punt block in your book, an A+ one, this is when you want to use it. You got Banks setting up back at his 10-yard line. Justin Snow to snap it, and McAfee to boot it. And that kick is going to bound into the end zone.
Huge
so
play.
32 seconds, and McNabb will get the ball at the 20-yard line.
Well, and remember, they don't have any timeouts available to them. So you want to think they can certainly run something in the middle of the field at this point, but then they have to really fly to get up there to have another opportunity. I wonder if they just go Hail Mary right off the bat here. Remember, Donovan McNabb, one of those guys, however far you want him to throw it, he could almost throw it in the end zone from here.
Yep. No dink and dunk here. From the 20. McNabb flings it deep over the middle, and a one-handed interception by Francisco, who hauls it in and stays in bounds at the 43-yard line. Signed for last week's game, brought him back after they cut him when he was hurt in training camp, a member of their Super Bowl team, and of course they're all looking up at the scoreboard here to see if this is going to be reviewed from upstairs to make sure Francisco stayed in bounds after the pick. One hand grab. Does he have possession? Yes, he does. Right shoulder goes onto the chalk, but at that point he has possession of the ball.
Al, can I tell you how close that was to being an 80-yard touchdown? You know, Francisco timed that perfectly. He got his hand on it. But if that thing tips off his hands and goes over the top, there's nobody else on the planet behind there. Give him credit. Francisco, Angler both made key plays, and that was close.
And the resilient Colts with a ton of injuries. I mean, Sanders out for most of the year. They expect him back hopefully later in the year. Bull is gone. They bring Francisco back off the street. A dive back in the locker room. They get the job done. Thanks in good measure, of course, to one number 18. Indianapolis wins it by a score of 27-24.